you've shared a lot of insights, and you used the word I was going to use as an anchor for Bumi's follow-up on challenges. You said it sometimes feels like you have to mourn the death, quote unquote, of that dream or that vision or that journey of faith. So could you elaborate more on the challenges to exploring those options, not just adoption? And Bumi, I want you to speak from the challenges that are more individualized and then the challenges with like the processes external. You touched about some of those already.
You want me to speak about the challenges?
Yes, yes. So like you said, one of those challenges personally, for instance, is overcoming that mourning of what you thought was, right? And then of course there will be other challenges which you touched on about the mismatch, the demand and supply, which is really interesting because a lot of times we see all these videos of kids in orphanages and you are wondering why they are not adopted. But then at the same time, you said legal adoption, you don't have enough babies. So please talk about those things and what, just expand on some of the challenges as you are aware of within the system, because those are the systemic challenges.
So let's talk about, I like to sometimes focus on the things that you have control over.
You
So I'll
have
start with the
control
things
over.
that you have control over as an individual before maybe speaking to some of the challenges with
Exactly. Let's just do the SWOT analysis quickly, right?
right. So in terms of um, the challenges for the individual, so it's
Mm,
you um, coming to terms with yourself that this is a very viable option.
mm,
Um, and then it starts with, what do you want? And I say that because, respectfully speaking, you find people who, because they've delayed, and it's important because you see this thing we're doing, the impact is far reaching. You see people who, the ability to take a stance, to make a choice, and they leave it at the table for such a long time, and they are there, I would say, blaming God, not knowing that adoption is biblical, actually. I'm able to speak to that very quickly. Even we stand up and claim blessings of Abraham. We're not Jews. So we were adopted into the family of God for Christians, right? So it is biblical. So the likely tendency to sit and not, make that decision and leaving it to God. And then people wake up maybe when they turn at their 60th birthday, and it's the children of nephews and nieces. And then the house, everybody then goes to the house after helping them. Max, maybe 1 or 2 sleep over. And then they are thinking, is it not now we go and do this thing? Now, when I even now, sometimes my toddler is, I'm telling her, stop, as in, mommy doesn't have that. Mommy's knees are making those sounds of inconvenience when I'm running after her. Mommy is tickling, mommy is, how much more? So the ability to really sit in, and for me, that's why I said that's the biggest challenge, the ability to decide for yourself that this is what I want to do. Because if you are waiting for externals, I've shared, I sometimes talk about myself to say that my mom wasn't pro-adoption. In fact, one of those days after I'd gone to speak with her and tell her about it after a while, and I'm saying that to speak to the challenges here, she, which is a challenge of acceptance. She had, I told her, she kept quiet. She was very mute. My father, interestingly, had some adoption encounter. So he wasn't really against it. And so they just thought, okay, if that was your decision, is it you telling us this, or is this you and your husband? And I said, oh, my husband will be telling his people as well. He is also excited to go and see his folks, to have that conversation with them. Then this is me having it with both of you because you're my parents. And I remember going back to see my mom, and they were having a random conversation. And my mom is a great woman. honestly. So it's not, it's just who she is, right? She wasn't pro-adoption. I remember her telling me that, so are you saying that I should stop praying for you again because you don't trust the Lord anymore, because you have said that this, mommy, So having that, her accept. And interestingly, now my mom is my daughter's family. Oh, they're friends. She's come around, right? I mean, because I have made up my mind. So the challenges would speak to you deciding if this is what you want to, and then so first that's internal, the one within your control. Because what people would say, um, as much as it is currently, whether as much as we like it or not, people are not really pro-adoption like that. Then when I speak to, so let me now just answer a few things you had said along the line and to just speak to that. Where you mentioned that, but it seems like there are lots of children in the orphanages. What you need to know is that all those children you see are not necessarily open up for adoption. What happens in Nigeria is, which is the best actually, I think, is usually closed adoption, meaning that somebody doesn't wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I want my child back. So if you're adopting a child, that child is yours. I stand to be corrected, but that's what I know because I mean, like I said, I even had loads of conversations with lawyers, not just for myself, but because I wanted to understand what is going on. It gives for me a lot of perspective to what I'm doing, and because of this work that I do as well, because I also speak to women as well, and holding. I have sessions where we're talking. It's not all those children you see in orphanages that are available for legal adoption. For instance, somebody's mother could be on substance, and then they find out that the mother is unable to take care of the child. So the government collects that child from her while there are court cases going on. And that child obviously is in an orphanage. So that child is not open for adoption. So you can find an orphanage with 50 children, and it's only like 8 out of those children that are currently available. The word they use is opened. It's only 8 children that have been opened up for adoption. Some, there are still ongoing court cases. So maybe you read a story, somebody's child, or maybe some commercial sex worker locks up a child in the house when she goes for her jobs, and some neighbors go to report. And then the government takes that child. That child is not open up for adoption because the mother is alive. And then she could be in court saying, okay, there are processes, right? So that, and so obviously the demand is not in terms of the available people who are looking to adopt, vis-a-vis the number of the children that are opened up for adoption doesn't match. And that's unfortunately why the baby factories would seem like it's right. And so that's another thing. That's another challenge. This adoption okay, so I've decided now I've opened up my heart for adoption. Is this legal? And the simple way that I say to people to even know if this is legal or not is exchange for money. I'm not a lawyer, but child trafficking is usually when there's an exchange for money. So somebody then says, the woman selling plantain in front of my house, her daughter is pregnant. The child, she's a fine girl, she's fair, she's lovely, she's spec I want. And then they speak to the mother, let me have this child, I'll now travel. That child can wake up tomorrow and come and say, that's my child. And then you give the woman, let me give her 5 million so that I set her up for life and let her go and take care of herself. How is that a legal adoption? So you have to get it right. It has to be done right. But anytime that there is an exchange for money, and that's also very important because unfortunately you read in the papers, poor people, sometimes people don't even know about it, but that is the simple test to know. Somebody comes to you and says, oh, we can help you, is 4 million naira. And then if the money is mentioned before the process is put ahead, just know that adoption, in fact, 97% of the time, if 100%, what am I saying, is not legal. Is a factory, is an arrangement. And that's why sometimes you find people, unfortunately, then they get dragged in the papers. They say child trafficking because police caught the child when they were trying to move that baby or move that child, and then it becomes messy. even though some of those couples, you start to feel for them because how did they? And a lot of people don't know. But it's ignorance is not an excuse in the law. Eh? So anyone that involves a upfront, and when Bukola spoke to it and said that she thought that once you have money, that's a mindset a lot of people must
Mm,
correct. It's
mm,
not, don't let anybody, you want to be very careful as well when doing adoption. In fact, if you ask me, if it's really that, your the finances is not a problem, maybe what you should begin to consider, and then is maybe a surrogacy. All you just don't need to do is to get a right agency, because an agency will typically have the team of lawyers and they will have everything. But you want to be careful with adoption so that you don't get your fingers burnt or get get yourself into a situation where you are now named. You
mm,
want to be careful. It
mm.
needs a lot of wisdom, and ignorance is not an
An
excuse.
excuse.
Yeah. You shared so many insights, and I'm here listening. You probably saw me silent a lot of times because I was soaking it all in as to how I'm hoping that, for this platform, which is the perfect segue for the next, conversation, is how a lot of people don't know these things and just have these whole, misconceptions and so on. I definitely can attest to that. So, sharing this is really impactful, and I've learned from that. And I can only imagine for everybody else listening to this conversation today how much they are learning and gleaning from this. Because again, as simple as all those kids in the orphanage is what is happening. That is not. And there was something you said, and as somebody who works in global health, especially when we talk about reproductive health and access to, women's health, that whole thing about abortion rights and all, it can be flipped on its head, whereby if people know that there's an option and the system, which goes back to the systemic, factors as well, is created in such a way that there is that pipeline for legal, you know, it's almost like a win-win, that there are people who are struggling with pregnancies that they cannot carry and they cannot keep, but is there something that they can do, or at least an option they has? It's part of holistic, access and rights to reproductive health. So that was something that was really interesting, and for me and so many again other global health people, maybe that is something we have not explored, and that is a research in the making. So now, shifting gears a little, you both, you can clearly see that not only are you passionate about what you do and your experience, but you've also worked to encourage others. Like everybody says, turning pain into purpose. You all put a P in that purpose with how changed, just flipped the switch in how you are sharing and talking about your experience. In fact, the fact that we're even here is a testament to one of the platforms that was built by Bukola and her husband, Navigating the Weight. So now we want to talk about how you both created platforms, right? You have not just sat on your stories, you turned it and flipped it to support other people. And what I love about these platforms you both have created, whether it's with books and talking to women and all that, is that you are allowing for people to be able to talk and share their stories as you share your own real stories as well. So now we will talk about these platforms that you've built, right? So with you, Olubu, you mentioned how you talk with women, shared with them your experiences and all of that. So what inspired this platform and how has it evolved over time?
Right. So my I am a Christian, and I usually can't excuse that because it is the reason why I do a lot of things. I had started Joy Tribe while still on the journey.
Mm,
Um, and then when I say on while I was on the journey, because truth of the matter is, I mean, just as today's topic is, adoption is a route to parenthood. So I have hacked parenthood through via adoption. But then I had started Joy Tribe because there was something I knew that I had. My ability to find joy
mm,
in the midst of it. One of the challenges of the journey to parenthood, conception, is that for the women, for especially, and also men as well, um, it's a it can be it can be draining. It's an emotional struggle. And so I first had written the book Joyful, Practical Tips That Helped Me Thrive While Trying to Conceive. Interestingly, born out of just conversations. And one day I was having a conversation with my dear sister, my older sister, and I was telling her that, you know, to write a book, Joyful, Practical Tips. I'm not sure I had the exact title yet, but I would say just, you know, sharing with women how I'm able to keep my joy up, you know, get through life and thrive. You know, when I use the word thrive, not show up looking happy, whereas you're not happy. Like low key on the inside, I used to say that if there was a thermostat that people can use to measure what I go through on the inside, there's always been joy on the inside, regardless. And you know, and she said, "Oh, that makes sense." And I was in a coaching program at that time, a particular dear lady, sister and friend, and she said, "Oh, that's good. That I mean, people need to hear this." And I'd written the book, and interesting, the feedback is even about the fact that it's not just we would all wait, right? So there's a posture of waiting, whether for the journey to conception, whether for marriage, there is a posture. And that if you learn that posture right, it will help you through, you know, to navigate life generally. So that was what I've written that book about. And then in terms of how that had then evolved after the community. So I'd put together that community. So it was a community and then a book that I'd written. The community is where, you know, we just have women who are on that journey and we share things that have helped me. You know, I have what I usually would call a framework. There's a course I'm developing that speaks to that as well, about things that I have learned. And interestingly, there are things and there are testimonies already as well, from women who just put in these simple things. Interestingly, and then in fact, we have a testimony of a birth within our first 9, 10 months of the community open up. We're just 12 women at the time, and somebody had their own baby. So joy in itself is a weapon and is a tool, and that's one of the things that I do with that community. But then, in terms of how that I have then explored, used looking at my adoption story, I'm also then able to walk women through to say there are other options that you can explore. And then I'm usually very careful about that because it's not the point is not to push adoption down people's throat. It's to say that while you are on this journey, please live, thrive, be all that you know you are supposed to be, a life of purpose. Because 1 in 6 women is staggering. Oh. And then
Yeah.
I don't even like to say 1 in 6 women. I say in 6 couples, right?
Six
So
couples.
imagine
Yeah.
imagine 1 in 6 people living below potential
Mm,
because they are on the journey of waiting.
mm,
Imagine 1 in 6 unhappy marriages.
mm,
Imagine 1 in 6 bad bosses.
mm,
Imagine 1 in 6 bad leaders.
mm.
Because it's a reflection now, and this
Yeah.
is so
Yeah.
the ability to live and thrive fully,
Mm,
regardless, while you're on that journey. So that has also helped me now to evolve into, I mean, just so much more. I'm currently writing another material as well, just confessions and things to help women while on that journey. And then I also then share, maybe for some as well, you know. The other day I had someone reach out to me, and it's not just one. I have quite a number who would say, you know, I'm considering adoption, because every stage that we would go through, that light, that path. There's something people say, and then I really like it. They say that's like in your light, others may see light as well. So
sincerely.
regardless of how that journey progressed, from the point of, you know, waiting on that journey, there is a light for others as well. And then even as I progress to choosing adoption for myself, you know, there is a light for others as well. And still, because I mean, I like the way that Nick, I think I was saying to someone the other day, Nick, I think he's Vigo Week, the
Mm,
guy who was born without arms and limbs.
yeah.
And he
Motivational
said one day,
speaker.
I watched
Yeah.
a very profound video of his where he said that he still has a pair of shoes in his house. in case God says yes and he has his limbs back.
Mm.
Um, so
Yeah.
while I am still I like to say that my story is not complete because here I am as well, still trusting. I would love, to have biological children because of my faith as well. But the point is, I have not paused my life. So my journey is still unfolding. But what I've done is I've been able to, by God's grace, distill wisdom because the things that we do in
Mm.
our lives and how we get to where we get to, if we're able to look at it, there are wisdom, there are things that we have done that have helped us to be where we are. So I've tried to then distill these different wisdoms and experience that have then become habits so that I could share that with others as well.
With
And they
others.
can also learn and find something that serves as an anchor for their own individual journeys as well.
Yeah.
That's why I love these collaborations, because people get to hear other people, not just me. My experience is different from Bumi's experience, so
Yeah.
people can pick up lessons from each of these our experiences. If you think that you don't have a child now, it doesn't mean that that's not the end for you.